Hello, and welcome to the very first How To RPG, a video series about teaching the basic mechanics to various tabletop role-playing games. The first one we're going to go for is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I know there's a bit of an oversaturation in terms of videos towards Dungeons & Dragons, but I figured might as well start off with something that I'm most experienced with, and something that is very well known. Okay, moving on. What is Dungeons & Dragons? Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is a tabletop fantasy role-playing game made by Wizards of the Coast. The game is built off of imagination. You can pretty much make any setting, any world, any character with the mechanics of this game. Wizards of the Coast provides its own default universes that you can use to play around in and build your own stories with. But of course, the fun of this game is also in homebrewing, which for those who don't know, is a term for making custom content for games. So you can use that to make whatever you want to play and add in whatever you want. Let's get down into the game mechanics. Dungeons & Dragons uses the D20 system, which means the 20-sided die is the central core of the gameplay mechanics. So you're going to be using it for most things such as attacking and actions. However, there are other dice that you can use, from the 4-sided die to the 100-sided die, and these are all for such things as healing, damage, rolling for effects, or adding on to another roll. Ability scores is what we're going to use to base most of our things off of. So, strength is used for strength-based weapons, dexterity is used for ranged weapons and other weapons that allow more control towards them. Constitution is for health and resistance against becoming sick. Wisdom, intelligence, and charisma is for spell-based stuff. So these also affect saving throws, ability checks, armor class, HP, initiative, attack, and all that other stuff, which I'll go into a little bit further detail here next. So what do the ability scores affect specifically in terms of out-of-combat stuff? Strength affects athletics, dexterity affects acrobatics, sleight of hand, stealth. Intelligence affects arcana, history, investigation, nature, and religion. Wisdom goes to animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, and survival. And charisma goes towards deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. So each core stat has skills that they affect and build upon. So whatever the base stat for strength is going to go into what your athletics is. Anything for charisma is going to go towards your social-based skills. Intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, all the same respective stuff. So that's what's going to help modify your skills and what you're going to be good at and what's going to be useful for your character. Keep in mind that classes and backgrounds have inherent bonuses to certain skills and abilities. That means you can become stronger when you're focusing on these skills, but that doesn't mean you can't use others or build it however you want. You are still welcome to build your character however you want. It's just good to note what your characters can become good with and what you want your characters to be good with. Additional mechanics to go over. Saves and death. Saving throws are what you're going to use for resisting things such as damage, effects, and illnesses, just to name a few. It just depends on what your dungeon master is going to have you roll in whatever situation is going on. So for example, you step into a very foggy and dirty swamp area, and you're going to roll a constitution saving throw to see if you can resist getting the various illnesses that are going around in the water. Death also has saving throws, which you're going to roll when your character hits 0 hit points. So for a situation like that, you have 3 chances to either get 3 successes or 3 failures. 10 and above equals a success, and underneath that is a failure. Rolling a 1 is a critical failure, which will result in 2 failures. A natural 20 will result in your character being brought back up instantly with 1 health. If you get 3 failures, your character dies. Or, depending on how your dungeon master has the game set up, could just be unconscious. When they get 3 successes, they are stabilized. They are still unconscious, but they will not be dead. But again, it's all to your DM's discretion on how the situation is going to play out, as is for most things anyways. Proficiencies. Proficiencies are for skills and items that your character is, well, proficient in. So that means they are inherently trained and good with what they're doing. The bonus depends on what level your character is, and it is very beneficial for using specific items because that means your character is good with them, so therefore it is going to be your best bet of using them. Of course, if you're someone who doesn't want to play with proficient items, you can certainly do that, but that offers you no benefit unless you are that dedicated to role-playing a situation like that. HP and AC. So HP stands for health points, which is the pool of health that you have for your character. Once they hit 0, they go unconscious, unless the situation where your character gets hit to go down to 0 plus negative 100% their health. Then they die straight away. Of course, that's up to DM's discretion. AC means armor class. The number for AC is the number required to be hit. So whatever roll plus the modifiers has to reach that specific number in order to actually hit the creature, or hero, or person. Whatever is being hit, it has to reach that number specifically. Inspiration, advantage, and disadvantage. I'll cover the last two first. Advantage and disadvantage is when you roll 2d20 at the same time. Advantage is when you take the higher roll, disadvantage is when you take the lower roll. These are all situational effects that happen when the DM gives you certain situations where you would have an advantage or a disadvantage. You would use them whenever the DM tells you to. Inspiration is something the DM gives the player or players for whatever situation they feel they've earned it, or just giving it away just because they want to. It's all up to the DM. The DM can give it to a player for acting in character very well, doing something that their character would do, or role-playing out a situation and telling a very good story, or just whenever. It's all up to them. But inspiration, when it's used, provides advantage towards the roll. And it's simple as that. While we're still on the topic of disadvantage, it's important to have your characters being taken care of. So that means having food, sleep, and drink. So that way you can avoid exhaustion. Granted, you can get exhaustion from various other means, and I'm not going to spoil what it does, as your DM will tell you when you get it, but it's something you should avoid entirely because it is bad and provides a very big disadvantage. Now, combat turns. Combat is something that is kind of important for Dungeons & Dragons, but it doesn't have to always show up. It's just something that shows up for the most part, and when it does, this is how it's normally going to go. So, combat turns takes roughly 6 seconds per turn. So each character, each monster, everything, it all happens in 6 seconds. So in 10 turns equals 1 minute, which is important for certain spells and events and whatever's going on that requires timing. So what you can do in combat is the first thing, an action. So you can use an action to pick something up, to swing your sword, to do whatever. It just depends on what the action is that you're trying to do. Most things require your action. Bonus actions and free actions are the side things that you can do really quick. Bonus actions are for spells or drawing a different weapon that you're proficient with. Free actions is just for yelling things, something that doesn't really take much effort or much time to do. So these are something you can do in conjunction with your action. You can do more things later on when you level up and during certain other events and activities that are going on, but it just all depends on where you're at in the game and what's going on. Movement, you can move however much your movement speed is, and that is how much move for 1 turn. Or you can spend an action to dash, which means you can double your movement speed. A reaction is something you can do on someone else's turn. So if a monster runs by you and moves out of your range of attack, you get what is called an opportunity attack. So you can swing at it, and that's your reaction. Or you have certain spells that when something happens, you can use that as a reaction. So with all that in mind, that pretty much covers the basics. If there's anything that I missed, or if there's any other questions that you'd like answered, feel free to leave a comment with asking your questions, and I'll try and do my best to answer them. I'll also be leaving some reference links into the description of this video, so that way any helpful materials that I am aware of, I can help share to you to use. So that's all I have for this video. See you next time.